my hair.
All right, there you go. Jackie, did you have a comment about your hair?
Just fixing myself.
Okay, here we are. Good morning, people.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're talking about some very important and serious stuff today, and hopefully we're going to talk about it in a way that is not serious. You may notice my backdrop. My backdrop is the congressional chamber. This is where the State of the Union is given. I have arrogated upon myself the rights of the President of the United States, if not the King of the world, in order to do, okay, because we're going to be talking about the state of the world. We're calling it the State of the Union, but we're going to be talking about the state of the world. We are going to have an honest and candid conversation, but as you may recall from our meeting a few minutes ago, I have expressly forbidden this to degenerate into a B-fest. We are not going to be whining. We are not going to be complaining. We are going to be candid. Ultimately, we are going to offer solutions. That's the key thing. It does not help us to sit here and whine and talk about how bad things are. It only helps us to talk about the conditions of the world right now and what we notice with individuals and families and our clients, etc., to the degree that we can offer solutions. And that is the idea today, okay? So I have my finger on the mute button. I am prepared to use it at any moment. So just be aware of that. Good morning, everyone who's watching us today. Again, we are talking about the state of the world and how the world is affecting us right now. In my observation and in talking to people, the world is still pretty weird. But before I give you my impressions, I would like to get the impressions of my staff and also of people like Joe B. Pops. Good morning, Joe B.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Joseph.
So, staff, what are your observations about the world right now and the state of the world right now? And not only the world, but, you know, we deal with individuals. So individuals, families, what do you observe is happening?
There's a lot of overwhelm.
Okay.
I feel like everyone feels, I use the word heaviness in some way. There's a lot of stress. You know, even if it's outside of their control, they're carrying it with them.
Right.
And it's causing them to spiral out.
Got it. It's causing some people to spiral out.
Some, yes, some.
Right. Okay, good. Are you spiraling?
I'm not spiraling out, but I definitely feel a sense of overwhelm.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Beyond that normal overwhelm that you always felt as a mother and a wife.
Absolutely. And, that for me, I feel like is an easy turn on, turn off, because that's just always there. That's just like a given.
Okay. So that's white noise at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But there's some additional noise that you hear that you're kind of aware of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like there is.
All right. Who's next?
Well, for me, I think it's a lot of like, you don't know if you're coming or going. And I feel like there's just a lot of like confusion.
Got it.
And no matter how much you try to do something, people are not satisfied with it, which is then causing you to feel like you're constantly upside down and you're never right side up.
Wait. So give me a specific example of that. What do you mean by that? Like people are never satisfied with what you're trying to do?
Well, I mean, it could be something very simple, like you're volunteering, like, you know, like you're doing a volunteer position and people are complaining about the fact that you're not volunteering properly or you're not doing something properly.
Okay.
And sometimes you want to say to them like, well, I'm giving my time, I'm doing something outside of work, for example, and yet you're still not satisfied. Like, then you do it yourself.
In this completely hypothetical case, is what you're saying that people seem to be more critical?
Oh yeah. People are very hypercritical.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, Jen.
So I'm glad I made everybody laugh. It's funny that you bring this topic up because I actually had this conversation with a friend this morning while I was waiting for my daughter, TikTok. And we were talking about group agreement or group disagreement. So what I mean by that is what we agree to becomes our reality, right? So you ever walk into a room and everybody's like in agreement that they're going to make a beautiful party or a beautiful class function. You guys are class moms and everyone agrees and it happens. Well, if you get someone in there who's like, wah, 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 and they start to muck up the works, you don't have full group agreement and therefore things start to degenerate. So kind of what the state of the world is that we went into a big group agreement. And, we can change that. So when everybody says, there are things that are happening that are outside of our ability to change or outside of our ability to
affect,
control. I understand. However, when we take a higher responsibility level, we start to realize that really everything is in our control, even if it's just our reactions to what happens.
Got it. Now, Jen, let me ask you this. So
Yes.
it seems like you're going to a very good, very therapeutic place, which is what I would expect from my head coach. What are your observations about what you're seeing with people?
My observations are this. What I'm seeing is that people are not seeing. They're choosing not to observe what's out there.
Okay.
They're choosing to see what they're being told rather than what the reality is. Now, when we leave the screens, when we leave listen, we know prices have gone up. We know if you're a fool if you think that the economy has not taken a nosedive. Like that is another lack of ability to see and confront. However, when it comes to basic humanity, what we're being told about basic humanity is blacks fight whites, men fight women. Like when you look into another human being's eyes and you find a point of commonality, what we're being told about it's bullshit.
Good. Okay, got it. So you're observing what exactly?
What's that?
What are you observing?
I'm observing that there are good people out there. And
okay, good. So you're observing. So whereas Corinne said she's observing a lot of confusion, Jackie said overwhelm, you're not observing that.
No, there is that, but that's what I'm observing is that that's being done to us by design, and we are agreeing.
Understood. Understood. I just want to know what your impressions are of people these days. Not so much causes.
My impression is that when you get out there in the real world and you connect with people, real people, that people basically want to connect and that they are basically good. And when you connect with them and you start talking to them and you find a point of commonality and you find a point and a way to connect with them, basically the people are good.
Got it. Okay, good. Trisha, what are your observations?
I do see kind of tying into all that, like the confusion part, you're being told one thing, you feel one thing. So there's a constant battle between the two. I feel like people are just stretched thin, overwhelmed. I do see that they're not listening properly to kind of get the messages that are kind of trying to be enforced. So I do feel that like it's a lot of confliction.
Got it. So you're observing that there's a lot of conflict out there. Okay, good. Good. Joe says, cost of everything has gone up. Income is going down. We are lied to daily by our government. Crime is up. People have less regard for God and family. In spite of that, I continue to try to enjoy life and the loved ones and like-minded people around me.
Same.
Okay, got it. So, my observations, and by the way, I've been having this conversation with a lot of people. And the reason is, I've been basically surveying people because I have my own impressions. And I want to understand if I'm kind of projecting my own reality onto the world, or if that's what everybody is noticing. And I kind of agree with all of you. I think that everything is in a state of flux and confusion. It's kind of like the bizarro world because things are getting back to what we considered normal before, but not really. It almost seems as if the snow globe has been shaken up and we're kind of dealing with the effects of that shaking. So we're somewhat disoriented. I think people's attentions are kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Like people seem to have trouble. You said listening, Trish, agreed, or focusing, or it's like it's hard to get attention. It's hard to have a rational conversation. And it's really interesting because what's needed now more than anything seems to be communication, and it seems to be connection. And I did a little research yesterday, not too much, because Jackie told me the topic at 8:00 last night.
Not true.
So
Not true. We agreed to this on Thursday.
She told you last week, and you happened to look at it at 8:00.
I mentioned it on Thursday, and then I had to get confirmation last night.
Yeah.
Right?
Dr. R, can I pose a question? Because I like what Joe has to say.
You can, but I did want to finish my thought though.
Okay.
Okay. So I did a little research last night, and one thing I looked up is the rates of fertility in this country, right? Because I was concerned, Jen, we were concerned. We had this conversation in the middle of the pandemic. There was a concern that when connection is less because of increased isolation, at the end of it, will people all of a sudden run out and start hugging and kissing and doing stuff that creates babies? I think we all know what that is. And will we see a surge in population, or will it be more like people have been so conditioned that won't even happen? Like, we'll be conditioned to being on our own. We'll be conditioned to not connecting. This was happening anyway as a result of social media, as a result of people's faces being in screens. And so the good news is the population in this country, the fertility rates are increasing. However, they're not increasing that much. It's like 0.09%. It's really not a lot at all. And given that people were locked up with each other, you would think that would have improved a lot. My sense is it's probably going to go down, as that type of physical communication is probably less like all the rest of communication is.
I don't think it's
Corinne had a question, and Jen had something to say. Corinne, go ahead.
So what I was going to say is, like, I'm often told, like, I should have been born in like the 1950s. I think what's gone on
1850s.
I think that what's gone on is exactly what Joe has said. Like, we probably all grew up having Sunday dinner together as a big family. Sunday dinners have gone away. People going to church have gone away. And the structure, which was always in place, has kind of been slowly taken away. And we've now normalized, like, it's okay not to have family dinners as a big family every single Sunday. Right. It's okay not to go to church. And as a result, I think we're now slowly, like Jen is saying, like, we're believing that this new reality is okay.
It's not okay.
And we need to really ask ourselves, like, why are we, and I'm guilty of it myself, like, constantly conforming of what social media is doing, of what everything is happening around us. Like, we should do what we really believe in oneself, as opposed to conforming to what the world is doing.
Excuse me.
Don't choke on the truth.
No. That's no kind of comment at all. No, that's what we call reflux. Jen, you had something to say.
I was going to ask where you got that data, because I want to vet the source of that.
I don't recall the site, and it's the kind of thing that usually I would give the source, because I believe in that.
Right, I know. Yeah.
I don't believe in communicating so-called facts without communicating the source, because we hear a lot of different facts, alternative facts these days. So you can check it out yourself.
I will, because everything.
You know how there's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics, right?
Yeah.
So that's a possibility as well. Did you have a thought or a comment about that?
I think Jackie and I were thinking the same thing. The actual numbers are that not only is fertility going down, but the miscarriage rate is going up. That's a whole other conversation for a whole other day.
That is a whole other conversation. We're talking in the context of communication, and sex and reproduction is a form of communication. So that is something that you and I have been concerned about now for almost 3 years. I mean, we were talking about this from the very beginning. What happens to society when people are isolated, when the number of interactions go down dramatically and go down fast? What happens when we're used to a certain way of life and suddenly that is changed? Corinne said, you know, we've been rocked. That structure has been changed. It's also the case, though, you know, there's the what's happened on a macro level, and then there are the individual choices we've made. Corinne, you take it for granted that going to church is a good thing. I agree. Now, you have the ability to do that. Is that something you've started up again?
Yes, it actually is, because I felt the need in myself I felt like I was robbing my children of something that they should know about, and then give them the choice later on in life if they want to continue to go or not go.
Okay, good.
But
And
I
your
want to instill
experience,
those values in them.
oh, so there's the values, but what is your experience when you do go to church? How do you feel?
Well, I feel like a bit more sense of calm. Like I'm back to my structure. You know, my husband and I are back to, like, you know, making Sunday morning breakfast for the kids every single morning, every single Sunday. You know, we're just trying to bring back a little bit, a bigger sense of family for the kids,
Yes.
and for them to realize, like, it's important. Like, we may not see everybody all the time like we used to, but family is everything in our worlds, and I'm sure in everybody else's worlds too.
Got it. Got it. So we're looking at two factors here, kind of. We're looking at, you know, what has been kind of imposed on us, but then we're also looking at our responses to it. You know, we can be concerned about both things, but like you said, there's nothing precluding you from going back to church. Or if anything is, it's kind of within you, right? So what do we think is the larger factor, guys? What do we think matters more? Does it matter more what's quote unquote been done to us, or does it matter more how we respond?
Response.
I agree. It's a response.
Yeah.
Response. I mean, there's a couple of things if I could just jump in. So one, just to go back to like the pregnancy rates, and we just
Jackie, is there something you want to tell us?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was hoping for some good news.
Stop it right now. Hold on. But yeah, I mean, I think that getting back to that, I'm also, aside from discussing miscarriage rates, and you're saying it's an actual physical factor. Whereas in my mind, I'm also thinking it's really the health factor, not the physicality of it. I think mental health, I think physical health, a lot of things that we've done and changed in our life and what we've become dormant. I think that causes a lot of the miscarriage rates. I think it has a lot to do with not being able to get pregnant. So I think it's a nutritional thing. It's a mental health thing. It's the physical aspects of, not the actual action of being the issue. I don't think it's that, to be honest with you.
Well, reproductive rates have been going down in the world for a while now.
Yeah.
You know, that happens.
But I don't think it's because of the human interaction.
Probably since like 1986.
Yeah.
Let's look at that year.
Wait, what is me being a senior in high school have to do with reproductive rates? What is the
same
connection
thing of me
there?
being in daycare too. I was two.
You were 2 years old?
There you go. I was 2 years old, 84.
Yeah.
But
reproductive rates have been going down, and arguably connection has been going down, and
yes.
And to a large part, I think, you know, if we're looking for reasons, screens are a huge deal. You know.
Oh, absolutely.
But can we also say?
Go ahead, Corinne.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, doctor.
Well, the other day, I started talking to somebody. I was sitting next to somebody at a coffee shop, and he was talking about politics, and it sounded like he worked in politics. And I turned to him and I said, you know, what is it that you do? And he's like, well, I'm going to be running for office for state assembly. And I said, that's great. You know, what's your platform? And he said, my big thing is the effect of social media and screens on individuals. He's concerned about it because of privacy considerations. He's concerned about it because of mental health considerations. What happens? I mean, suddenly in the last, 15 years or so, human beings are now interacting in a way that they never really did. I mean, that has to have an effect. He was more concerned about kids. It's funny because we all talk about kids and how concerned we are. They have their face on their phones 8 hours a day. I don't know that we're much better than that. Are we? I mean, we're constantly
looking at as I do.
Through. Yeah, what's the solution to that, guys? What do you think the solution to screens are? It's a new way of interacting. I mean, nothing good can really come of it.
Well, I think it's structure. I think we've, this is very layered. I feel like coming into a place now where to be the most efficient is the way of the screen, right? So it's through the internet, through access, through Google. We want everything right now. We don't want to wait. We're an extremely impatient society. Years back, it wasn't like, oh, I need directions somewhere. Let me Google it. And I remember there were a point where, keep your eyes on the road, but yet you were reading a 30-page printout from MapQuest. That's a real thing, but it was
MapQuest. We remember before that. If we go into AAA, would give us something called a triptych.
What about the big maps?
Drive with one hand on the wheel. I mean, we're an extremely impatient society. We want everything now because we stomped our feet and that's what we said. A lot of people bypass research. They bypass facts to get things right now because they think that's what they need right in the moment. Right in the moment, they don't care. If you're going to guarantee me I could lose that 20 pounds, where do I sign? They're not even asking the how. Why, you don't want to hear about the health benefits? No, not at all. But same thing, if you're unhealthy, we'll give you the medication. I want to reverse this now. It's always a sense of urgency. We're never preventative anymore. And I really think it goes back to structure. I think we need structure. It comes and if you have structure, not that we all have control, but we all want control to a certain extent. And this comes from every aspect of life, whether it be family, education, your job, friends, social aspects, your influence. If you have some sort of structure and you kind of in hindsight, exactly what your goals are. Listen, it's very easy for us to go off path. It's very easy for us to be, fall on the wayside, but it's a lot easier to get back into where you should be if you have some sort of structure.
Yeah. Well, Joe makes a good observation here. He's talking about moderation. And because we are able to have this conversation right now with a bunch of people, we have the ability to reach a lot of people and the ability to hopefully positively affect a lot of people because of the advent of the internet.
Absolutely.
And otherwise, that would be a much more difficult process, right? Trying to schedule something, make sure everybody shows up, et cetera, et cetera. But the other point that he's making is that it's a balance. There seems to be a tipping point when it comes to this kind of technology, whereby the benefits after a while are not worth it because in part of what Jackie's talking about. Jackie, I never considered this before. The ability to get quick and easy answers, although it's great to be able to scratch an itch anytime you have it, but when everything is at your fingertips, what comes from that? Like Jen, extrapolate that out. When everything is at a person's fingertips, then what happens to them?
Well, I was thinking of a couple of things there. So first of all, we have to, again, I'm big on vetting the source, as you are, but there are certain algorithms that put in front of us data that may not be 100% true. Like there's so much going on behind the scenes of screens. So if you use one search
But even if it is true, the ability to just get everything you want whenever you want, what can result from that?
We all have the ability.
Like we think we want that, but what's the consequence?
I don't think anything good.
No, well, no, not necessarily.
So I think the consequence of getting everything all at once is that we don't really appreciate the work that it takes to put in the effort, and we can be spoon-fed. So the consequence is we can be easily manipulated by data that's given to us by the search engines that are skewed with the algorithms designed to
sway, right?
show us,
Yeah.
sway us in the direction of the information that, I'm going to say it, the global elite want us to see. Do I duct tape my mouth now, Corinne?
Well, it's not
Yeah,
about
but
any
I
of
don't
that.
even
Listen,
think it's that.
everyone has an opinion, and everyone, you know, everyone wants to kind of find cause, right? But there's also been a trend in finding cause in others, finding cause in finding cause in politicians, in the global elite, in whatever cabal you have. And anytime we get too blamey about that, we're actually lessening our own power. We're disempowering ourselves, and we run the risk of becoming too victimy by an incessant kind of focus on what's being done to us, as opposed to having a focus on what can be done by us.
Correct. So there is a fine line between blaming somebody else for what's going on and confronting the fact that there is something going on. Because if you can't confront it, you can't control it.
Right.
So you can't say, like, there is obviously this network of, you know, others, whatever you want to call them, whatever name you want to give them. That's not to say that we allow it to continue going on by blaming them, but to say, to identify, to look at them, to see them, to identify them. There's a fine line between that. I don't consider that blaming them. I consider that identifying and confronting it so that you then can be causative over it. There's a little bit of a difference there.
Just as Joe is suggesting, there is a tipping point. So it's a beneficial exercise to try to identify, you know, bad things, bad people, you know, results, causes.
Correct.
And then there's a certain point at which that beneficial exercise becomes an exercise in disempowerment and negativity. Corinne, you had something to say.
Well, I just want to backtrack real quick. I mean, Jackie hit on something really quick, really good, which is needs versus wants. I think the biggest thing in our society is we all grew up wanting something. Now, whatever we want, we just get instantaneously. And our brains have been rewired, and there's no more waiting for anything. Which is why we are we have become an impatient society. Like, I don't know, how many of us remember like Christmas and we had a list this big because
that started in the summer. Started in the summer.
Right. That because we had a want for everything.
Yeah.
Now what do we have wants for?
You know, Corinne, it's a great point. And if you go back even further than that, think about, you know, when we were, I don't know, farming.
Corinne, when you were milking those cows.
Corinne knows all about that. But I mean, the way human beings were for generations is they understood that processes take time. They understood that if they wanted to eat next year, that they had to plant this year, and that everything wasn't at their fingertips. And now suddenly, or relatively suddenly, that has all changed. And there's not the same understanding. There's not the same appreciation of time and of processes. And it's really interesting and weird to project what will happen. In Star Trek, for those of you who are fans of Star Trek, like especially the original one.
The original.
Yeah. There were
my aunt was such a huge fan.
Who? Your aunt?
My aunt was such a huge fan. That's the only reason why I watched it. She's no longer with us, but that's all I think of. Like that, I could recite parts of Star Trek.
You know, Jackie, the original Star Trek was known for its amazing graphics. Like you could not tell the difference when you were looking at those sets. When you were looking at the ships and space, you thought you were really in space. Like you could barely even see the string that they had on top of the Starship Enterprise. But there were a few civilizations who actually outgrew the need for bodies. They were kind of these disembodied brains, and anything they wanted, they would just sort of blink like genie, and they would have. And they were terribly bored, and they had to live through other people, and cruelty was the rule because that's how they manipulated people, and that's how they got pleasure, oddly enough.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. So, guys,
even look at the dynamics of the way the world has changed. I mean, like we live in, in our local town, we had local farms. And slowly but surely, every single one of our local farms is shut down.
not everyone. Jen lives across the street from one.
That's
Well,
really
but that's
that's the last one standing.
But so now you lived in the suburbs. I didn't. I born and raised in Brooklyn, and we didn't have that to begin with.
No.
Jackie, you didn't have a farm across the street that you could go to?
No, I didn't. There's an apartment building called Flag Court. Hi to all my friends from Flag Court. They were all right across the street. It was a tremendous building complex. But yeah, we didn't have, not that we didn't have access to those things, but that wasn't our backyard. So, like, freely speaking, what you were raised on, where it's like, wow, but look at what we came from. We had fresh fruits and vegetables, and we had this. Those are things that we purchased from a store, Right. And it was also, again, accessibility. I remember my mom worked. She was a single parent. She worked. She never missed a thing. We'd go to the store. I'd go to the store with my grandmother and my cousins, and we'd go get meat at the butcher. We'd go get fish at the fish market. We'd go to the grocery store on the corner and get fresh fruits and vegetables that were probably picked in Jersey right on the corner. I remember, peeling corn husks right there, cleaning. It was normal for them to be on the floor. You go now and everything's prepackaged for you. It's easy. Everything is so accessible that it could go either way. It's either where you don't have to do anything, zero effort, minimal work. There's no excuse for you not to succeed, right? Or you have those abilities and then you become lazy on it because you're nose blind. It's all there. Even from I need the doctor's note for my daughter. I had to take her out of school early for a dentist appointment. I don't even have to print the paper. They just email for everything. So I'm relying on everybody and the accessibility of life of everyone around me to do something. Where if we stood here and had to do something on our own, would we know what to do? Does anyone know how to change a flat tire? I don't. I don't. No, think about it. I mean, I know who to go to. I know who to call.
Yes, AAA.
Yeah.
Like these are things that, and it's as much as I try to instill in my children, I even don't know.
Well, let's do this. Let's start to talk about some solutions, because here's where we are right now, the State of the Union. Can everyone start humming? Dun, 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 So here's what we're discussing. Over the years, it was happening anyway, right?
Yeah.
Families have moved further and further apart. Some of our institutions, be it families, schools, churches, they're not what they used to be. There seems to be less of a need to go out and do things and to go to these places and to have these connections. With the advent of screens and the internet, everything is at our fingertips. We tend to be living in a virtual reality world. The world has recently been rocked by this pandemic, or rather the responses to it. Our power structures have changed, as Jen was saying, as information has become more centralized, and power has as well. I mean, obviously, the internet reaches into everybody's homes, but it starts very often at a particular point. We thought it was going to democratize power and information, and it's gone the other way. So all of these things are happening right now as a result from what we're observing. People seem to be less focused, less communicative. Some people have observed that people are angrier, or more anxious. So the world is still a little bit weird, and it will probably be that way for some time. I don't know if things are ever going to come back to what we're used to as normal. Now, given all that arrayed against us, given what's going on in this very weird world, by the way, in the old days, before there were screens, we didn't have to swallow the world whole. And these days, it seems that we do. We didn't know what was going on in equatorial Africa, or, by the time we heard about what was happening in Russia and Ukraine, it was weeks later. I mean, now it seems like it's all on top of us at every moment of the day. So given all of this, guys, what can we do to get back and to help others get back to a sense of normalcy, or at the very least, a sense of how we would like things to be, because things were never really normal, were they?
No, never.
Okay, what are your best suggestions? Thank you, Joe.
You guys give him a little credit somewhere.
Everybody has to just get back to being with people, human interaction. Like,
Right.
you know, like Dr. R, when people come in the office and it's like, are we hugging? Are we handshaking? Like, that was never like that before. It was
Never a
you
question.
greeted
We
people
never
with
had to
a
question
hug
it,
or a
right.
handshake, you know, like to even have to question it. I think, you know, once we stop doing that, it just takes away, you know, human interaction, you know? So I feel like that just, if we started just making that all normal again, and, you know, feel like it'll bring people back together again.
Okay, new policy. Everyone who comes into the office has to hug me. Okay. Group hugs? How do we operationalize this? Is that going to freak people out? Let's say I do like
I'm sending out a text blast. Don't come in unless you're a hugger.
Yeah, agreed. Again, physical contact is a form of communication. And that's the kind of thing that we used to not consider whether or not we should do it. You know what? I feel like we don't, but there are a lot of people who do. No, but we do, because we don't know what the other person is thinking.
You're reading them, right?
Right.
Just
okay,
ask.
good. That's
May
a good
I
place
hug
to
you?
start. Yeah, Jen, what do you got?
So I was going to say, in that case, just ask them, you know, may I hug you?
Well,
So,
we do, but
I know.
in the past, we
Whoever
wouldn't. We would just grab them or grope them or something.
Yeah.
So, listen, speak for yourself. I'm not a groper. So
We don't, guys. We don't do that. Nobody in the
that's
office does
not
that.
what we don't. That's not a service we.
There's an
we
extra
offer.
charge for that.
Yeah.
Well, we don't
So-
offer that. Dr. R, maybe. I don't know.
No, I'm not. So
I'll charge.
can I get back to, because I have some things that I wrote down. I actually texted this to a friend today. And I had mentioned before about group agreement, like the lockdown group agreement,
Yes.
the masks group agreement. And think of how many people are no longer agreeing because people are fed up with it. We want more connection. And, you know, hold on one second. I gotta sift through some of it because it got very spiritual today. So I don't want to really go there. But, you know, the collect, and I'm not a big collectivist, just to say, I believe very strongly in the power of the individual who can then come together to help other people. But I think the answer is to turn this around and find new agreements, to create a good game, to find purpose, to help others, because we are really in control of so much more than we think we are. You know, spend time with your children, like Corinne and Trisha were saying. You know, there's beauty in that.
Didn't people spend too much time with their children?
No, never.
No,
enough.
never.
No. Honestly,
enough.
I was fine with it.
Never enough. You know, we can go out and we can do magical things because really we are creating the life that we want by our vision. And worry and fear drives us down into inactivity and inertia. We go into a state of hopelessness, and without hope, there is no future. And it takes an emotional toll on us. So the war is here. So if we step out of ourselves and we start looking to, like everybody has said here, engage with others, we can defeat the forces that don't want us to be successful. And if you shine bright and you create a beautiful life for yourself and help the people around you create a beautiful life, that is how we win this war.
Okay.
It's so simple. Honestly, it is.
Yeah.
New group agreement.
So Jen, okay, good. So I like the idea of making different agreements, right? And I like the idea of a different agreement being not being fearful, not being anxious. Now, practically speaking, and I do want to mention this, and this is sort of a plug, but not really.
Yeah.
Practically speaking, we've been taking on that responsibility in our office.
Yeah.
So it is not uncommon for people to come in overwhelmed, whether it be with their physical health. We have a certain level of trust, so people will
Correct.
reveal to us some of what's going on in their lives. Jen, you have some particular training that you're able to sit with people and do exercises. You tell me or tell us, and this is something that we're willing to do. It's not something that we charge for. It's not something that, is on our menu of services.
No.
But because you have this training, because you know that you can help people in this way, it's something we've been doing relatively frequently. Give us a couple of good stories about some things that have happened as a result of doing that.
So we had a client who came in and she was visibly something was going on with her. And I did this particular sit down discussion with her. And she came in the next week and she's like, that job I hated? Yeah, I quit it. Okay, awesome. And then she had a couple things going on with her condo board that she actually took control of and got people together, and they hired an attorney. And before, she was just stuck with it. She was too preoccupied with I don't know what to do. And I don't know. And I feel like everything's spinning. And it put her a little bit more in control, in the driver's seat. I've had some crazy stuff go on with it. That's just one really good one. I had somebody else say that at the moment they didn't recognize it, but they woke up the next day feeling lighter.
Yeah.
So there's always something to do.
There is
always something to do.
And just so everyone knows the mechanics of it, and when you do it, it's not designed to fix a person forever. But the fact is that when people are up against it, suddenly they become consumed with their worries and their fears. Their attention tends to be on the inside. And
Yes.
what you're able to do by doing these exercises with people is allow them to have their own realizations, to where they can then get their attention off of the worries and fears and
Right.
onto the things that they want, onto what they want to accomplish, onto
Right.
the world at large. And it's extremely therapeutic. So if anyone finds themselves overwhelmed, then we will try to help you in this way. And mind you, I have also created some written materials designed to do the same thing. It's within the context of weight loss, but not really. But it's designed to do the same thing without necessarily needing our time and attention, things that you can do at home. So we'll be distributing this in the future.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Jen. All right. What else?
I have a couple of things actually. So
Okay.
one thing is that overall, and we keep saying like the new norm and getting back to reality in the sense of overwhelm. And there's just so many different areas. And it's like, you can't just pick one. It's not like, okay, you know what? They're right. That means it's at 11:30 today. I'm just going to start fresh and everything's going to be perfect. That's just not realistic for a lot of people. Some people could just dive right in, choose one area and let everything fall into place, where some other people may need structure. Some need to baby step into it, kind of put their toe in a little bit. And I think the biggest part, like, breaking it down, like biggest to smallest, is that life is happening as we speak, including your own. So you need to get out of your own way. That's the biggest thing. And I feel
100%.
like living your life in, no matter how you choose to live it, consider it a judgment-free zone. Like, you come here, we talk, we socialize, we engage on the lives, we talk in person, on the phone, in the office. And everybody, although we can sum it up as a sense of overwhelm or conflict or being unsure or insecure, whatever it is, we're all finding a common ground where you feel comfort to talk to us.
Right.
You have to find that within yourself, because the truth is, if the longer you dwell on doing nothing but say nothing is making you happy, nothing is working for you, you can't function, the longer you're postponing your success. And it's not that it's going to be something immediate. It's not something that we're, oh, you know what, this works for me, it's great, I'm 3 days into it, my life's amazing, things are perfect, I have a full sense of control. You have to start somewhere, and if it takes with starting at home, family, structure, food, simple choices, saying no, I'm putting the phone down, no, I'm limiting screen time for myself, for my family, making it whatever it is, simple things, whatever, you're making a decision. That's your first step towards that successful action. So you have to, there really is a simplicity in that. And when Jen says like the beauty of it, like life is that simple, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Life is not cookie cutter. My life and what works for me and my family and me on a daily basis, or when it doesn't, what I do to get back into it, may not work for Jen or Trisha, Corinne, Dr. R, or anybody else. You have to start within your own camp. So you really have to go back to structure. For me, it's yes, instant gratification, where it's like, okay, you know what? This feels right to me. I'm doing this for myself. Therefore, it trickles down to those who choose to be around me.
Always, right? Always. The one thing that you have in common with every aspect of your life, with your family, with your work, with the world at large, is you.
Yes.
So, starting with the man in the mirror is a good idea. Having said that, having a larger purpose, a larger game, as Jen said, focusing out will get your attention off of worries and concerns.
Absolutely.
I recall, and then we're going to get to Corinne in a minute, but just very quickly, I recall years ago, it was around Christmas time, I was in a very bad place. I don't remember why, but I was in a very bad place. So I went to the Bowery and I went to a soup kitchen and I worked in the soup kitchen for that day. And that I found very effective. There's always situations that are worse, and perspective can just change a lot of things.
Absolutely.
Corinne, how about you?
So I think it's going back to, for me, how does it get better? You have to take what's most important to you first, and you have to make that better. And then you have to create a plan to take the next step. And you have to just kind of chip away at it step by step and stop accepting what we think we're supposed to accept and start accepting what we believe in ourselves.
Okay. May I ask you a question? You said kind of to not get the words exactly right, but to get the idea is you have to take what's most important to you and improve that. For most people, that's family, right?
Yeah.
So operationally, how do you do that? Give me an example of just making your family a little bit better. What might that look like?
So for me in my house, it's sitting down and having dinner together every single night.
Okay.
The idea of, it's mind blowing because it doesn't happen in my house, but the idea that, John watches TV in the kitchen and Mary watches TV in the bedroom and the kids watch TV in their own separate bedrooms. Like, no, like there should be a sense of family and you watch a common TV show all together. And then when the kids go to bed, you and your husband watch a TV show together. This way you always have a sense of like community, like you're saying, like that sense of like want. To me, that's the first step in everything. Like you
Right.
have to want to be around each other in order for things to get better.
I really like this idea about eating together. As a constant thing, as something you can rely on, whether that's having 7 dinners a week sitting around the table, or whether it's only 3 because of circumstances, or even 1. Just the idea of sitting with your family, breaking bread. One thing I would recommend is no cell phones at the table. That's
Nope,
probably a
not in
good
our house.
practice as well. But it's a great place. That's a great place to start. A healthy meal and good conversation with your family.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, good. So listen, guys, we covered a lot today. We
Yeah.
covered the State of the Union. The State of the Union can be summed up as being, it is weird. We are in a weird place. This could have been foreseen, I think, if we would have projected, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago to now, we would have said, things are probably going to be pretty weird. And they will probably be weird for more time. The good news is we do have the ability to change that to make it somewhat less weird, or in the case of my staff, more weird, but still good. So we can do things. There is always something that can be done, as Jennifer
Absolutely.
said. And I think that's our task. I mean, I think if we start with something really small, like
Absolutely.
dinner together, like connecting, like hugging people. I think that's a really good place to start, and that will give us a better sense of ourselves and who we are and what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
And first, let me read what Lisa says. She said, my family v me catch 22.
I think she meant and me.
And me. Okay.
Reverse
not
me.
versus. Yeah,
My
that's
family
bad.
versus me.
Yeah, we don't
versus
want
me.
that. Took the time in the morning and have less stress. We start off well. Awesome. Okay. Well, listen, thank you, everyone. Let's go. We've been doing this for quite a while today, but I think we touched some good stuff.
Hugs to you, too,
Hugs
Lisa.
to you. That's right. And everyone have a great week.
Thanks. Have a
Bye,
great
guys.
week,
Be well.
Great week.
Bye.
Have a good week.